Hi friends. Today we're covering the newly released Chikuhodo holiday collections. But before we get into that, if it's your first time here, hi. I'm Alicia. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinky Sweat stands for my kinky hair and swell life. I'm a fitness professional who loves things on movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeups, you can head over to my Instagram. If you want to check out my virtual class schedule, well then please sign up for my newsletter down below. At the time of filming, currently the trio Kirameki set is sold out both on Fude Beauty, Visage USA, and Beautylish. However, the 5-piece blue set is still available. Again, at this time, don't know what the situation will be when I upload the video. Available on Visage USA and Beautylish, not available on Fude Beauty. I bought these two from Fude Beauty, although they were so kind enough to send me brushes for several of the videos I did on my channel. I bought these sets myself because I had to have them. We'll cover both set, all the brushes, and we'll also compare them to last year's holiday collection. Why don't we start off with the set that's not yet sold out? The Chikuhodo Kirameki 5-piece set. This retails for $250 on Visage USA, but on Beautylish it retails for $220. I'm aware they held a really great promotion where they were running 25% off. It says that special offers including Visage promotions cannot be applied to this Kirameki collection. This is a limited edition set. I am not entirely sure if the trio will come back in stock at one point, but we'll cross our fingers. Inspired by the magic and mystery of the heavens, the Kirameki holiday collection celebrates the season of wishes with a celestial touch. The Kirameki 5-piece essential set with brushes for the face, cheeks, eyes, and eyebrows conjures every detail of the perfect holiday look, featuring handle adorned in Prussian blue and a constellation of shimmering celestial lights. Notes on the detailing: you have, I think, a more prominent holiday look with this year's design as opposed to last. So this is from 2020. Here is one of their brushes, and you can see on the handles that this year's has the beautiful trail of stars on the blue gradient, where last just has the blue gradient. And maybe to some they prefer the more subdued look from last year's collection, whereas I think this year's design takes a more literal sense of what holiday is. I automatically thought of retail store windows here in NYC, very whimsical in terms of the decoration, and I do feel this year's design on the handle takes on a similar intention. The trail of stars overlay on the blue gradient I think is absolutely stunning. You have the same design here on the purple from the trio set, which unfortunately is currently sold out. But if you were wondering, the star design is the same on the trio set, except that that one holds a purple gradient, the 5-piece set a blue one. Coming back to the 5-piece set, we'll start off with the powder brush with a slightly slanted edge and bristles made from the highest grade of goat hair. This powder brush is both exquisitely soft and easy to use along contours of the face, making it a dream for applications close to the hairline or along the cheekbones. The one brush I automatically thought of when I laid my eyes on this one was the Yano Series 02 powder brush. This is again from the Chikuhodo holiday set. It has that off-kilter slant, although you see there's a more prominent one that exists in the Yano series brush. I was so excited to see that Chikuhodo made a brush with this slant because I rather enjoyed this design for several tasks. Here I applied the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Powder in Tan 03. The slanted design on the brush when placed on the skin has a beautiful splay that I feel makes powder application lightning fast. In turn, however, I feel it makes it intuitive to use for bronzer application because the slant just fits beautifully into the hollows of the cheekbones, and it also hugs that area of your face that will lend that beautiful bronze look that's just blurred and has a soft focus finish on the skin. I applied here the LYS No Limits matte bronzer in the shade Harmony, and it fits well around my brows to get some bronzer on the temples and also under the jawline. I think overall a great brush for both setting powder And for bronzer application, for contouring, I would use a smaller brush, but if that is not included in your makeup routine, then this brush is perfect for all those powder tasks mentioned. And again, this is all Chikuhodo goat hair, which is great for product pickup, especially with powder products, and has beautiful blend without being too harsh on the skin. And this brush is packed in a way that has nice feedback. You can feel it on your skin. It flows nicely, but goat is not as soft as gray or blue squirrel. So if you know you have sensitive skin and can only use brushes with gray or blue squirrel, then the Chikuhodo goat will feel a little rough on you. But if you have a skin type that can withstand Chikuhodo goat, then this will be a beautiful choice. Next up, we have the cheek brush with tapered bristles and a blend of gray squirrel and capra hair, which is a type of premium goat hair. Makes this uniquely constructed cheek brush a lavishly soft and incredibly versatile holiday favorite. Need a highlighter or bronzer brush? This cheek brush has you covered. Now you can see automatically with the slanted design and especially with the brush head size, optimal for more precise bronzer application. I apply the LYS No Limits bronzer in Courage, the tan color on top of medium to get a little more definition in the cheekbones. And if you're one to use bronzer in terms of intensifying the color by using a smaller brush, then that will be a great task for the cheek brush. I also use it on the other side with a lighter color bronzer, same LYS, but in the shade Motivate in the light color, because a smaller brush will pick up more product than a bigger one like the powder brush that I presented earlier. It's going to deposit a little more color. So if you have that bronzer for your skin tone that needs a little more punch in the application, then this brush will be great. Even if it's a gray squirrel blend, because of the capra hair bundled in, you're still going to have more than reasonable pickup with your powder products. I especially love the cheek brush with blush. As you can suspect, here I applied, I believe, the Mel Cosmetics Monarca blush palette in the shade Milagritos, which was the softer pink shade. Beautiful brush head size for blush application. You can just use the surface area of the brush and feel it on the apples of the cheeks, and it's just intuitive in terms of where the blush goes. Very soft on the application. Although I did use the powder brush from the same collection with blush application just in case, because you never know. I apply the shade Sonrisa, and of course I had to dab off a little bit because this shade packs a punch. Again, the slanted design from the powder brush just lays down a beautiful splay in terms of how the bristles lay on the cheeks. That makes blush application possible despite this brush's size. If you feel you could only use this for setting your foundation or even applying a pressed powder all over your face or even a light dosing of powder foundation, and again, as you saw with bronzer, I love the powder brush for blush. You can still get it here that it's not going to get all over your face and look unsightly. Whereas if you do want a more precise application of blush, then definitely the cheek brush is designed for that purpose, as well as some bronzer. But if you're wondering, because you read in the description it mentioned highlighter, I know for myself I like to rely on smaller brushes for highlighter just so it can stay on the apples of my cheeks and not spread too far down. I applied the Star Glow highlighter from Natasha Denona's Glam face palette. I made sure to apply the powder just on the edge of the cheek brush and then lay down that edge on my cheekbone, and that lent a more precise application versus if I were to apply the highlighter on the surface of the brush head. That will definitely lay down a little more product than I was expecting or looking for. With all that to say, you can definitely get away with highlighter application with this type of a brush design. You just have to be careful with where you place the product on the brush and just have that edge come in contact with the skin, and the highlighter application will still be precise. And again, a note about the gray squirrel and goat hair blend. I love gray squirrel and goat together because you still get a softer brush than one that is exclusively made with all goat hair, but you still have that great product pickup, amazing blend on the skin. So if you are looking for a brush in this collection to have gray squirrel, then the cheek brush includes some of those bristles, and again, that just makes it very smooth and soft on the skin, makes powder application a breeze, and the texture left behind is silky and smooth. Next up, we have the eyeshadow brush, and this is designed for all over application on the eyelid. The eyeshadow brush is resilient enough to pick up pigment but silky to the touch, ideal for conjuring a variety of natural looks for the holiday season and beyond. This brush is made out of pine squirrel, and I was pleased to see a pine squirrel blend in the collection. I think it's a very versatile bristle. It has more pickup and it has a little more pushback than gray squirrel or even Chikuhodo, but I like it in this design because it's not your typical shader brush in terms of the brush head size, meaning it has really nice fluff here on the edge, which means you can use it to blend shadow through your crease, which is what I did here with the Charlotte Tilbury quad in Pillowtalk. I know, who am I using the Pillowtalk quad? Great for blending out these mattes through my crease. I did not feel the need to reach for a traditionally designed crease brush that has the candle shape. I thought there was enough fluff that exists in this eyeshadow brush that I could blend the shadow successfully through my crease and the edges look blurred. I also have a little bit of control, so if you have smaller eyes, you can take advantage of the shader shape and just fit the brush into the crease, and it will glide along the folds of the eyes, and you can then structure the shadow in a way that's a little more precise if you like, or turn the brush on its side so that the wider surface area that comes in contact with your eyes then spreads the shadow a little more and it will appear blurred and finished. Perfect for applying shadow on the lower lash line. It's not going to blur it down too far because it's still a shader brush in design and will keep the color pretty tight there. And as you suspect, great for laying down a standout lid metallic or shimmer. Pine squirrel is great because it's resilient. It's not as soft as gray or blue squirrel, not as soft as Chikuhodo, but it has great product pickup for those shimmers or metallics, and the brush is wide enough so it lays down that product in a jiffy because it pretty much takes up the entire space of my lid. And if you have smaller eyes than I do, then forget it. Your eye looks going to be done in a flash. Next up, we have the shadow liner brush. This is made of capra hair, also known as goat. This shadow liner's design makes the exquisite softness of capra hair with a firmness of a small dense tip the perfect brush for applying color to target areas. Use this shadow liner to accentuate details for more definition along the lash line. Now here I applied Chocolate 2 from Viseart Minxette Étendu palette. I was able to achieve a hefty, robust wing with this brush, and I was very pleased to discover that. The bristles are on the shorter side, so you would feel that this brush doesn't have the same glide as a brush with longer bristles. It might even feel a little stiff. The advantages to that is that it will have great product pickup and lay the shadow intensely along the lash line so you can create a robust wing liner. I also use the same brush to lay down shadow under the wing liner to clean it up, and you can also use this brush to apply shadow under the lash line closer to the lashes so it can have a little more intensity there. And it could also be great for inner corner highlight as well as brow bone highlight. So you see that it's wide enough to get to those areas that you need precise application, but the color is not going to look so pinpointed and out of place. It's going to spread beautifully with the size of this brush. And lastly, we have the eyebrow brush. This is made of water badger hair. This slanted, short-tipped eyebrow brush delivers the ideal amount of firmness, making defining, filling in, and enhancing brows effortless. Now, I'm not one to typically use brow brushes, as I had mentioned in my Koyudo Yoshiki series video, but I do love that eyebrow brush. And having this one is definitely stiffer than raccoon hair, which again is found in the Yoshiki Koyudo brush, and the stiffness of the brush will manipulate the brow hairs in a way that make them look feathery. And with product on the bristles, your brow hairs will be brushed up and will have some product through. So if you want to create a softer brow look that doesn't look as defined and hardcore, if you will, like if you were to use a brow pomade or even a brow pencil, then using an eyebrow brush will then leave behind a softer brow look. Is actually easier to achieve because you just use the brush to place product along the base of the brow, and then again to brush product through it. And the stiffness of the water badger hair will at the same time brush and groom the brow hairs and will contribute to the overall shaping of them and lending color at the same time, since you are using the brush with product. And I had already applied my Benefit pencil through my brows before filming, but I still liked how the brush combed through the brow powder, and I felt that gave my brows a little more dimension because the khaki green color mixed with the more taupey brown gave my brows a soft gradient that of course is not super apparent, but I think overall just lend to a softer brow look without having to use a pomade or pencil. So I might find myself using this brush more often. It's easy to use, and again, I think great for beginners who are not comfortable using a brow pencil but might feel more comfortable using a brush like this one. That is the Kirameki 5-piece set. Now, while I understand the 3-piece set is currently out of stock, you never know, fam, so why don't we cover it anyway? Once again, as you saw, you have the same star celestial design on both brushes, but the 3-piece set showcases a beautiful purple gradient that goes from like a rich royal purple into the black lacquer finish. This set retails for $110 on Visage USA, but on Beautylish it retails for $97. And Beautylish does have an option for you to enter your email for any restock updates, which indicates that they might get it back. I'm not entirely sure, but it's worth a try. First up, we have the powder brush, and this is crafted with the highest grade of goat hair Chikuhodo. This powder brush combines the luxury of a soft touch with a high performance design. The brush's distinctively rounded brush head allows for a variety of applications that go on effortlessly and with flawless results. Now, I do love the flat round design, and because this is the only powder brush in the collection, accompanied by an eyeshadow brush and a smaller pencil-like eyeshadow brush, as you can probably suspect, this is great for all the powder tasks. Loose or setting powder application, here I applied again the Charlotte Tilbury setting powder. For bronzer, fantastic, again I applied the LYS bronzer. Now, although it's bigger than the 5-piece set cheek brush, because it is flat, you can then just place bronzer here, and it still fits fairly well into your cheekbones. Of course, it's not going to be as precise as the smaller cheek brush from the 5-piece set, but you can still make it happen, okay? Especially if you're one to apply bronzer in like that 3 fashion that's very carefree. It's like just get it on there, okay? Then the brush is going to give you that result. I believe I used this brush with Charlotte's Pillowtalk blush. Great if you're looking for that wash of color on the cheeks, especially if you don't want to use an intense color that might be more appropriate for a smaller brush, or maybe not. Maybe you wanted to use a color like Paradise Venus from Pat's Divine blush collection, then this will definitely get it not only on the cheekbones but also on the apples of the cheeks also. If you're one to just solely rely on blush for your cheek application, if you have completely abandoned bronzer, then this brush will do you just fine. Perhaps a little more tricky for highlighter, but I do think when we get to the eyeshadow brush and those details, you can get away with using this for highlighter. If you still insist on using this brush, like I had discussed with the cheek brush from the 5-piece set, you will then have to apply your highlighter right here, confine it to this part of the brush, and then place just that part here on the cheekbones, and you totally can get away with some really nice highlighter application. If you wear powder foundation, this will also be great for that application. Do keep in mind, however, if you're looking for coverage, a puff brush type of a design, something that's more kabuki in style with a tighter bundle of bristles will lend you more coverage. But if you're looking for just light coverage anyway from your powder foundation, then this brush will do you just fine. Because the longer bristles, it's going to have more flow on the skin and not lay down as much product than a shorter bristled brush would. You can still get really nice application from your powder foundation, even still with this brush. Next up is the eyeshadow brush. This is made with Capra, also known as goat hair, a holiday must-have that can be used for natural applications or dramatic effects. This eyeshadow brush both delivers all over eyelid color and targets precise areas. I love these types of brushes. Now, compared to the pine squirrel brush from the 5-piece set, again, we're looking at the goat hair brush from the 3-piece set. It is slightly bigger, for sure. If I put it up here against it, you have a little more width coming from the 3-piece eyeshadow brush, and it is a little softer than pine squirrel, so that's going to allow a little more flow through your crease, which I did here using Viseart's Minxette Étendu palette. I applied a shimmer not only on my lid but through my crease. This is perfect if you're that one and done eyeshadow makeup wearer. You don't want to deal with 10 eyeshadow brushes for just one eye look, okay? Just give me the one brush and I'll get it done. This one right here is gonna do just that. Not only will it give you beautiful lay down of shimmers or metallics on the lid, but the flow of bristles is optimal for crease shadow application. Again, much like how what I described with the pine squirrel eyeshadow brush from the 5-piece set, once you turn the brush on its side, you can take that application through the crease and make it look as if you used a blender brush, like something like this, right? But you used a brush that looks like a shader. And the bristle length makes those applications possible. Not too long that you can't have great lid lay down, but not too short that you can't blend. Superb for lower lash line application. A little big for the inner corner, which I think a brush more appropriate for that task is the second eyeshadow brush in this collection. This brush is crafted with Chikuhodo goat hair bundled in a candle shape. Can concentrate color on the eyelid or add definition to the crease. The pointed tip of this eyeshadow brush is the secret to a flawless result. Now, yes, although small for crease application, if you have eyes my size, if you have smaller eyes, this is great. It fits right through the crease, very soft, so it will move the product without moving your skin. Blend those edges. Great for inner corner application for your highlight. If you don't want a robust placing of eyeshadow under the lash line that you will get probably from the bigger eyeshadow brush, if you need something smaller, you can place that shadow under your lash line. I also love to use this for arch brow placement of color and just to clean up the edges of your eye look if you took the shadow out or if you kept it in, just to blur those edges around and in the crease. So although this is only 3 brushes, this is probably why this set sold out, because it is cheaper than a 5-piece set. But you can basically cover all your makeup tasks with these 3 brushes. Under the eye setting powder, maybe a little bit tricky, but you could use that shadow brush for under eye powder setting. If you're one to not use powder or a lot of it anyway, then just pinpoint that application with the shadow brush. Again, we covered all the cheek tasks and complexion powder tasks using this powder brush, and refined more precise application of color with the smaller eyeshadow brush. Now, those are both collections. To compare these to last year's, let's start off with the 5-piece from last year. This came with red gradient handles. It's like an ox blood color that just swims into the black. It's just gorgeous. And this doesn't look as literal holiday as this year's collection. If you don't want traditional holiday designs on your brushes, then maybe you'd have liked last year's more, or if you have last year's and you're like, I want to skip this year's because I'm not crazy about the design, I get it. Definitely this takes on more of a subdued look, and unless you knew this was specifically released for holiday, you would just think this was just another collection, right? Not for holiday, but just sometime throughout the year. Here's this year's powder brush against last year's. You can see that last year's is much bigger. It's again flat on both sides, very fluffy at the top, and it looks like a bigger version of this year's cheek or powder brush from the trio set. It's that flat round look, very fluffy. I would say with last year's brush, this doesn't have, or the spectrum of different application is not as wide. I mean, I can still get away with bronzer, but blush I will have to be careful with. Great for all over setting. as you can probably suspect just from the size, which is probably why they included an actual cheek brush. Now, compared to the angled brush from this year's collection, if you prefer angled brushes, then this year's will be great. If you prefer a round cheek brush, which I do love, when it comes to round cheek brushes, I think the swirl and twirl method is just a great matchup with this brush size, not only for the bronzer application. If you rather apply contour powder, if you're one to use contour powder anyway and completely skip bronzer, then this will give a more precise application because it just fits beautifully here into the hollows and cheek. As you see, that round shape makes it beyond easy to use on the cheeks. You can swirl and twirl, even if you wanted to do a pull down sweep. And with highlighter, you can still apply some highlighter here on the edge and still get a decent application from that brush. The eyeshadow brush, similar to this year's, but you can see it's more straight on the sides, whereas the brush from the 3-piece collection, so again, this is 2021, 2020, I think this actually might be blue squirrel because the roots of the brush look gray, and that usually indicates a blue squirrel strand, which makes it, and yeah, that's definitely blue squirrel. That is soft. Now, compare to the goat hair eyeshadow brush from this year, the advantage that goat hair has over blue squirrel is, of course, the product pickup and a more robust blend, versus gray squirrel is just going to be a lighter application of color, perfect for those who don't emphasize their eyeshadow application. They sometimes maybe just want one color on the eyes, but they want it to appear like a wash of color, very natural and finish. Then last year's brush will definitely give you that. You can still achieve that eyeshadow application with the goat brush, but you would just probably have to pick up less product and hold the brush lower on the handle so the pressure will be lighter and you can achieve a similar blend that you would with a blue squirrel brush. The second eyeshadow brush from last year's collection is like its bigger brush counterpart, except much smaller. So you see the actual brush head design likens to the bigger brush. It's straight on both sides. It has long bristles, but just smaller. Unfortunately, this year's 5-piece set goes from the pine squirrel eyeshadow brush to the liner brush. So you don't have an in-between. You just have the bigger eyeshadow brush straight to the shadow liner. So if you prefer not to have a shadow liner brush and you liked last year's collection better, then this has the bigger, fluffier lay down shadow brush and the smaller packer brush that I believe is also blue squirrel. It's not going to pick up as much product again as goat, but if you want that softer lay down of color on the lid, but because it is a smaller brush head, it'll be more precise in that application. And lastly, we have the eyebrow brushes. Now again, this is last year's and this is this year's. You can see that this year's is wider, last is more narrow. I don't know if last year's was also made with badger hair, but I can see they look different in terms of the hair coloring. Head on, they have similar thickness, but you can see again, this year's brush is much wider, whereas last a little more narrow. So if you prefer the more narrow design, then that will be the advantage, that the application will be more precise, whereas maybe you prefer this year's size and you just need to get your brows done. Okay, you can't, you just gotta go and you're done. And the brush from last year's collection, not that you're gonna spend exorbitantly more time on your brows. It might take you maybe like 2 seconds longer. But really that is like the difference. All right, last year's trio set compared to this year's. Last year we're looking at the beautiful gradient blue finish compared to this year's gradient purple finish with, of course, the star design. Now last year's powder brush was interesting. This is the fluffiest angled brush I own. Like, look how wide the head of the brush is. It takes over a nice surface area around your face, and advantages to having a angled brush. as we discussed with the brush from the 5-piece set from this year's collection, is great bronzer, great blush. This one with highlighter, a little tricky. This brush is from the 5-piece. This is from last year's trio, much smaller, and you can see the gray squirrel blend from the gray roots that this brush has. This brush, I believe, is all goat hair, judging from the roots of the bristle. And again, that means more product pickup than blue squirrel. And you can definitely get away with really nice cheek product application with this brush. Although it's a little bigger than you might prefer for cheek product tasks, you can still definitely accomplish all those tasks. Fantastic, of course, for loose and pressed powder application to set your foundation with. You know, it's multitasking in nature. It's just very fluffy for an angled brush. And unlike any angled brush that I have, usually they tend to be smaller, not only in brush head size, but doesn't have as many bristles as this one. So this is really cool. The shadow brush from last year's trio has a more pronounced taper. Compared to this year's, you can see that this year's is rounder, also a little bigger. Now with the taper design from last year's trio eyeshadow brush, that will lend more precise application through your crease, especially if you have smaller eyes. Simply from that tapered design, that's going to get in a little tighter into your crease than a rounder edge found in this brush. Perfect for lower lash line application, and again, because of the taper, the application won't be as hazy as one that you will find with the bigger eyeshadow brush. And you can also get away with inner corner highlight, again because of the taper. So I think this brush head design from last year's trio set is genius, because that small taper on top of the actual brush head size and the actual fluff makes it a great all-around eyeshadow brush for crease, lid, lash line, and inner corner. And lastly, we have the shadow liner brush from last year compared to this year's. You can see this year's has shorter bristles, lasts slightly longer. I don't know if you can detect that, but because of the slightly longer bristle on last year's liner brush, when you apply liner on your lid, you're gonna have a little more flow on the skin. Whereas this year's shadow liner brush is, I think, more appropriate for stamping on and short stroke application. If you're one to slide the brush along your lash line, if you feel more comfortable with that technique, then last year's, I think, is more appropriate, or more appropriate pick for that technique. And also great for inner corner highlight, brow bone highlight. Fantastic for more intense color application here on the lower lash line, really tight to the lashes as well as top lashes. And again, if you like to slide the brush along the lash line versus short stroke it and stamp it, then the longer bristles on this brush, great for those techniques. So those are all the demos, the details, the comparisons. Let me know if you picked up Chikuhodo's Kirameki holiday collection sets, whether both or one or the other. If you have last year's collections, which ones you like better. I will see you down in the comments, fam. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, Chikuhodo extravaganza, monthly favorites, or vlog. Take care, and I will see you again soon.